Hello, students. This is the video lecture for Chapter 14, Advertising, from the Mindich textbook, The Mediated World. Hopefully, you come outside. Obviously, hopefully the sounds of the birds are not too distracting. All right, let's do this. The beginning of the textbook, well, the first thing it talks about is Super Bowl commercials, but there's also this, I want to say it's a great anecdote, and I mean great in the sense that it's interesting, not great in the sense that I endorse the behavior. But take a look at page 255, the story about John Watson and this little child and how he taught the little child to fear a rat. And see that anecdote and how it relates to behaviorism. And again, I'm not endorsing that behavior, but in classical conditioning, and you should also take a look at this passage in the textbook, you're trying to associate a certain type of feeling or emotion with a certain activity. And there's the famous story of Pavlov and his dog, and how that relates to advertising. And then John Watson, the gentleman I talked about on the last slide, with the twisted story about the rat and the child, actually became a vice president at J. Walter Thompson Advertising. So that shows a very clear indication between behaviorism, which is a term from psychology, and the industry of advertising. Ads begin with a pitch, which is a proposal to convey an idea or some type of feeling about a product. Advertisements increasingly try to sell us a feeling rather than giving us information about the product itself. If you look back at old ads, I'm going to play an old ad here in a moment. Older ads from 50, 60, 70 years ago tried to be very scientific. The thought was that if we could rationally explain to the consumer why our product will work, then they will buy it. We have increasingly moved away from that. Also, we've moved towards much shorter ads, just trying to sell you in a burst, like a certain emotion or feeling. But here, take a look at this old ad, and you can see how it has a sort of scientific approach.
Yes, 3 out of 4 doctors recommend the ingredients in Anacin. And why? See for yourself. When headache strikes, pain mounts up. You feel dull, depressed. Tension puts nerves on edge. Now, aspirin has only one pain reliever. Add buffering, you still get only one. But Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is a combination of ingredients to 1, relieve pain. 2, help overcome that depressed feeling. 3, calm jittery nerves. You get fast relief from pain, fight depression, calm jittery nerves.
Advertising often works by selling us a promise. There are 4, this is identified in the textbook, sort of 4 basic promises. If you buy this product, you're going to be loved. We all want to be loved. You can have intimate relations with a stranger. We see this especially in ads that target male consumers, that if you use the right type of detergent or shampoo or deodorant, this is what's going to happen to you. You could go to a faraway place, some exotic location, and in that exotic location, you'll meet a new person and have intimate relations. And then your purchases will bring you to a world of riches. Increasingly, this is what we talk about when we talk about sort of the consumerist mentality, that you can achieve happiness if you have the right product. And the textbook also talks about strategy. Once you have the pitch, the basic idea of how you want to approach the consumer, then there's the big question of how are you going to reach that consumer? Not everybody is going to be the right consumer for the right product. So how do you reach your target audience? Here, I've just taken a screenshot. This is several years old. This is a study by Nielsen, which shows ethnic composition for the radio audience associated with certain radio formats. And again, these are the terms that Nielsen uses. These are not the terms that I would use. We have Black, Hispanic, and other. In this case, other means white. And if you wanted to reach a particular demographic, a particular section of the audience, you might find the radio format that is going to appeal to your audience. And then you also have demographics breakdowns as well. Do you want someone who's 55 or older? Do you want someone who's under the age of 35? I mean, this, I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg, but Nielsen has all kind of market research that they do to help advertisers target specific demographics. Strategy can also include demand creation. Now, this is a problem. What demand creation means is we don't want to fulfill an existing need. We actually want to create a need that the consumer didn't even realize they had. This can be very problematic when it comes to children's advertising. Children are considered to be rather susceptible and a protected audience. We have a lot of ads, a lot of laws, excuse me, a lot of laws and regulations that pertain to children's advertising. And then you also have the issue of demand creation with medicine. Maybe there's a certain condition, got a plane going overhead. Maybe there's a certain condition. You don't even know you have that condition. You see a commercial, aha, I think I have that, therefore I need that product. So demand creation could be a problem, particularly with children's advertising and medicine. I also associate the concept of demand creation with De Beers advertising. You know, historically, buying a diamond ring for your loved one when you got engaged was not a thing, and that De Beers was able to make that now a common accepted practice because De Beers wanted to sell their diamond rings. So that is an example of a successful demand creation. The textbook talks about product placement, including examples here from Forrest Gump. Hopefully, most of y'all have seen that movie. And then we also have an example here from Stranger Things. I think many of y'all are probably familiar with that particular Netflix series as well. Product placement used to be maybe kind of an extra additional type of money that a TV show or film could make by putting a product within the show. Now it's become kind of baked in. And many times studios will tell someone, hey, you know, we know your movie's going to cost 100 million. We're going to give you 80 million or 90 million. You find $10 million worth of product placement. So product placement is not like an additional thing. It's oftentimes sort of baked into this, just the basic revenue model of a film or a television show. If product placement is done well, I don't mind it because I know I live in a world where people do use Apple computers, drink Starbucks, drink Coca-Cola. So if I see someone on a film or TV show doing that, I feel like, hey, they live in the same world I live in. But at times when product placement is done poorly or heavy-handed, it's just awful. Product placement has been a part of cinema history since the beginning of cinema. Okay, there's a very famous science fiction movie. Again, I think maybe most of y'all have seen it. Some of y'all maybe have heard of it. E.T. E.T. had product placement for Reese's Pieces, a type of candy, the little alien monster like this candy. It was supposed to be M&M's. M&M's famously turned it down, probably kicked himself in hindsight that Reese's Pieces became very famous. And sort of boosted its popularity by being in the film E.T. E.T. did not invent product placement. That's one thing I want to stress. E.T. did not invent product placement. It goes back decades before. Ads are everywhere, and they are increasingly showing up in every type of location. We might hate them, we might dislike them. I find them kind of annoying myself, but ads do make a tremendous amount of money. And if you want to make money, which I think many of y'all do, excuse me, which I think many of y'all do, making ads and selling ads is the way to do it. You'll make more money making and selling ads than doing almost anything else in one of the media industries. That's just the way that it is. And as an example of ads being everywhere, here we have an ad on a urinal cake. A urinal cake. I wouldn't want to be associated with that. I wouldn't want to be associated with that. The textbook talks about the consumerist backlash, often associated with this movement of media literacy, where advocates want to educate people, students, to sort of be more discriminating and more discerning, because the images that we see in advertising are not real. They are inherently unreal. And I view this class as being, you know, if it's not all about media literacy, but that's certainly an element of it. I'm hoping that after y'all have taken and completed JMS 200, you'll be maybe a little more critical about the images that you consume. There's also a concept called femvertising, advertising that's not about objectifying women. It's about empowering women. Victoria's Secret has done some campaigns that are associated with femvertising, as well as Dove. Dove has done this as well. And we also have, kind of related to femvertising, we have this social activism in advertising. Advertisers are taking on, I mean, we live in a highly politicized world, and advertisers are inserting themselves into that by taking a stance on cultural, environmental, and social issues. Um, Not everyone's a big fan of this kind of thing. I mean, if toothpaste suddenly puts out rainbow marketing for Gay Pride Month, and then they drop it, is that toothpaste really doing anything to help the cause? Is that toothpaste really an ally? Or are they just trying to sell and then they forget about it a month later? And then we have this infamous ad where Kendall Jenner was trying to sell Pepsi. It was sort of tying into protests going over about civil rights. And it came across as being kind of tone deaf, I mean, protests can oftentimes be very violent, and there could be some really legitimate, serious issues at stake. And the idea that, like, oh, we can all get along if we drink the right kind of sugary syrup soda is a little tone deaf. So, be critical when you see advertising that tries to play into some type of social activism. And if you are fortunate enough to be in a role where you're creating ads, you got a good paying job, and you want to go down this route, just be very careful about what you're doing. There are many, many different venues for advertising, different venues to reach the consumer. We still have newspapers. There has been a decline in classified ads. We talked about that when we talked about newspapers, but newspapers haven't gone away entirely. And we also have magazines. They have print ads, high quality, glossy paper. They also have, the online component of the magazine ads as well. Magazines are increasingly going towards a very targeted, specialized audience. We also have radio. There's local ads, national ads. I showed the slide earlier about radio formats being aligned very closely with certain ethnicities. That continues to be the case, and Nielsen does a great deal of very granular, very specific market research on that. You can have DJs who are paid to, they're announcing the songs, but then they also start talking about a juice cleanse or something like that. And podcasts, which I see as sort of a subset of advertising, a subset of radio. Podcasts are a subset of radio. We're seeing more and more branded podcasts, okay? More and more branded podcasts. And then when it comes to television, I mean, television is built on advertising. Television is built on advertising. There's local ads, national ads. We have this increase in AVOD, advertising supported video on demand, pre-roll ads on YouTube videos, all that sort of thing. You also have direct mail advertising. This is more commonly called junk mail. Only a small percentage of direct mail advertising is effective at all, but it's very cheap. It's very, very cheap. We have telemarketers, and then there's sort of outside signage on billboards and things like that. And then finally, you have the packaging, which is the last chance to reach a consumer. Maybe the consumer is in the store and you want to get your ad to them right there. Now, the textbook does not, I don't know why. I don't know why David Mindich didn't include this. I know him. I should tell him, hey, David, put this in the book. CPM, it means cost per thousand, not cost per million. Cost per thousand. We're using the French word for thousand here, mille, as in millipede. Why are we using the French here? I don't know. I have no idea. We're just doing it. Okay. Just go with the flow. CPM is the standard metric for the buying and selling of ads. You take either the number of views, the number of viewers, or the number of ad impressions. CPM is used in a variety of industries, and just divide it by 1,000, and you could factor in the cost. That's how CPM is used. Now, I'm going to throw up two screenshots here. The numbers might not be accurate. Okay. The numbers might not be accurate. I just pulled this up today. But it gives you a sense that, like, CPM is used for a variety of things. Here, March 2024, we're talking about CPM rates for podcasting. Okay. So they're using CPM rates to talk about podcasting. And then we have CPM rate here, talk about viewers for ads that appear on streaming services, which we don't like ads on streaming services, but they're not going away. So CPM is a term you should know. Now, when it comes to new media or emerging media, there's all kinds of new ways to reach the consumer and get a message out. We have QR codes. Um, there's ads on streaming services, ads on YouTube. There's also ads that involve interaction, where, like you're watching something and it's like a little ad will appear and you can sort of click on it with your TV remote. I have this at home. Or maybe online, they want you to take a survey. I've even seen, believe it or not, I've even seen a patent application for a TV commercial that would stop. I think it was from McDonald's, and the show will not progress until you like say I'm McLovin' it or something like that. You had to say a certain phrase and then that will advance the ad. I think that will drive me crazy if that comes to reality. We have augmented reality where you can wave your phone or a mobile device at something, it transport you to a place, it sort of brings up some digital content to go along with the thing you're actually looking at. And then we also have uh, sort of the psychographic data that is gathered by different online companies, including Google and Facebook, but more companies as well. Psychographic data refers to not just demographic, your age, your income, your ethnicity, but also your personality type. Are you a go-getter? Are you a quiet, reserved type? Are you an introvert? Are you a this? Are you a that? And so what these marketing companies do is try and match up different personality types with different types of content. So it's like, hey, I have a new zit cream. I want to reach this type of person. What podcast or what new streaming TV show is going to be the best way to reach them? I've even heard about ads that target emotion as well, called sentiment analysis, where this is using big data and sort of all these giant computers that we have, and probably AI as well. They could evaluate your social media profile to determine what your mood is on a day by day basis. And then maybe you get a promotion. Suddenly you get a car ad because you got a promotion. You're going to buy a car. Maybe your significant other broke up with you. Let's give you ads for Oreos because you're probably sad. You want to go home and gorge yourself on cookies, whatever. So not only are they targeting you based on your personality, psychographic data, but they might start targeting you based on your mood. Okay. There are different types of industry research. This is covered in the textbook. A lot of the industry research is market research about how to tailor a product to reach the specific audience that we want. And then there's also click-through rate. Now, this is something that you can measure with online advertising that we could not measure in the analog world of print, radio, and television, sort of pre-internet. You could not know very easily whether or not an ad had an effect. But if someone sees an ad online and clicks through it, you can have some indication that, hey, at least it got them to click. Maybe it didn't get them to buy, but at least it got them to click. I want to talk a moment here about online advertising agencies and how they work. And maybe some of you could find a job at one. Okay. I don't mean to be down on advertising because it does pay the bills. Um, an online advertising agency is kind of like the middleman, the go-between web producers and advertisers, and it could work with multiple websites. So, for example, you're selling shoes. Maybe you're selling shoes to women. You go to the online advertising agency and say, "Hey, I have this new ad. I want to get it in front of 10 million women aged 18 to 34. Maybe they speak Spanish for whatever reason. This is like the audience we want." That online advertising agency will then find the online properties that appeal to young Latinx women and will serve up the ad to them. You may not know where the ad is going to appear. You have no idea of which websites the ad is going to appear on. You just pay for a certain number of impressions. I want 10,000, I want a million, whatever. And then when that ad has reached that certain threshold, then it's done. And the online ad agency can say, hey, we've delivered for you. We gave you X number of impressions. Now, the problem, this is a problem, okay? Stressing this is a problem. If you don't know where your ad is going to appear, and if everything is being done by AI, robots, and algorithms, it's quite possible that your ad could appear next to content to which you do not support, or content that is simply not appropriate for your ad. In the old analog era, if you were laying out a newspaper, like laying out the pages of the newspaper, the ads and the editorial content and things like that, if there was a car crash, for example, horrible car crash on Interstate 8, terrible, right? You don't want to put a Toyota ad on top of the page. when then there's a car crash, 5 people killed on the 15, right? But a human would be able to see that, like, hey, don't put a Toyota ad above this car crash. But computers don't always know that. Here's an example. This is just an example, but you can get an idea of what kind of thing could happen. We have an online story about obesity appears next to a McDonald's ad. McDonald's probably not happy about that placement. And we also have something called click fraud. This has been a problem in the industry for years. Okay, click fraud. And I associate this also with fake views on YouTube. If it's something gets 10 million views, are those real people, or is that something just generating false views? But the way click fraud works is, go back to the example, you're selling shoes, you want to reach young women, you pay for 10 million impressions. The online ad agency could be underhanded and engage in something called click fraud, where they sort of inflate the numbers by having remote computers just automatically clicking on your ad or something of that nature, so that you're not really getting all the impressions, you're not really getting all the people you want. We call this click fraud. So determining the size of the online audience is an art and a science. There's a lot of people who work specifically on how to understand all the data that is generated by online traffic. And one of the things, I don't do this myself, I never did this, but one of the things I know that they're always concerned about is click fraud, trying to determine if all the record and the data and the activity of online traffic, whether it's real or not. So click fraud is a term you should be aware of. And ethics. The textbook closes by discussing ethics. Many people have a very low opinion of advertising. I have a mixed feeling. I think I have a realistic feelings about advertising. I don't love it, but I know it pays the bills. And every now and then I'll see an ad for something I never heard of, and I'll be like, hey, I like that. I would like to see that thing. I would like to buy that thing. So maybe it's a necessary evil. But anyway, to boost the sort of impression of advertising and sort of its overall standing, many advertisers have been working to develop different advertising ethics, and the Institute for Advertising Ethics. I'm going to put all these up here on the screen, and I'm not going to leave it up too long because it's in the notes. But yes, I don't want to talk about advertising and completely ignore ethics. And I'm going to ask one more question. And when that question is done, I'm going to put a terrible example of product placement from a TV show called Hawaii Five-0. The questions will be done, so just answer this last question, you're done. But I'll just throw one in at the end for those of you who want to roll your eyes or groan or see an example of poor product placement. Here you go.